started. I know multiple folks were planning to join us, so I'm sure we'll get a few additional folks joining us in the next couple minutes. We have some fun polls and some questions today, so I hope everyone's ready for that. But I just wanted to say a quick thank you to Corinne and Diana. Corinne is the founder and president of Faircom New York, which is a CCS friend, has been working with CCS for a very long time now. I know that Corinne is very close to Bob Cassane, Charlie Michaud, Tom, and a few others at CCS in the New York office and in other locations. She is an expert in the fundraising industry. She has worked with so many different of CCS clients and other nonprofits across the years. She has an expertise not only in the US market, but also in overseas. And so Corinne's firm does a lot of work with marketing and communications, direct mail, as we'll get into today. And so we're so lucky to be joined by her colleague, Diana Lee, who has over 13 years of experience in direct response fundraising, has also worked with a number of just coincidentally CCS clients and others like the New York Public Library, the Whitney Museum of American Art. And so we're really, really excited that they'll both kind of take us through a 101 and an introduction to direct mail. It's something that I know we get asked about a lot. It's something that is so important for all of us at CCS to have a good foundation and background on. And I would just end my introduction by saying a very big thank you to them both, but also to all of you that, you can feel free to ask them questions. You can feel free to direct your clients to them. I think they're open to both. And so with that, I will ask Corinne and Diana to get us started. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you, Arshia, for the introduction. So we're all very excited to be here and to give you an overview of direct mail. And so without any ado, I'll just jump right in. Okay, so I'm sure we've all seen probably a direct mail package, whether it's our clients or even getting it in the mail. So we just want to do a very quick overview of what the anatomy of a direct mail package should have. So here you see the letters, the reply form, some might have an insert, outer envelope, and return envelope. But really, the most important components of a direct mail package are going to be the outer envelope and the reply form. And why is that? So the outer envelope is important because it's the first piece that someone will see when they take this out of the mailbox. So what it really needs is it needs to have a very strong teaser, compelling imagery can also help, because what you want to do is you want to get the reader to open the package. That's the most important step, because if you send a direct mail package and it goes unopened, then they're never going to give. So the first step is always to get the package open. And the other important piece of it is the reply form. And it's important because this is what donors will hold on to at the very end. They're going to skim through the letter, throw it away, insert, same thing, skim, throw it away. But they'll hold on to the reply form. So when they are ready to give, they'll have it ready. So the most important components of the reply form that you want is a personalized ask. Personalization, you do want the name, address, and the code so you can track the gift and see where that gift is coming from. And then your most compelling message should also be on the reply, because again, they keep it and this is what they'll refer to all the time. So this is something that would go to a general donor, whether they give $10 or $100. And here, this is a sample of a higher touch package. We did this for TechnoServe, and this went out to their $250 plus donors. So it's you see it's a little bit more personalized. It has a larger envelope, 9 by 12, has a special invitation message, a letter, and this is what we call a full page reply memo. So as you can see, it looks a little bit more formal, like someone's getting a memo, and it's really asking them to give. It has a 4-page, 4-color insert that really goes into more depth about the important work that they're doing and the people they're helping. So this is just some quick samples of what a direct mail package should look like. But why is direct mail important? A lot of organizations have it as part of their fundraising program. And so we're just going to go into a little bit on why it's important to have a strong direct mail program. So here, you might be more familiar with a donor pyramid, but this is more of an upside down funnel. So we understand that you probably focus a lot more on the major donors, whether you're working with $50,000 donors or $100,000 for capital campaigns or large campaigns. But what direct mail really does is it serves as a feeder program to bring in your lower level donors, $10, $50, and it creates a pool of prospects who will, through several years of cultivations and solicitations, will upgrade to a mid-level and eventually to a major donor. And a major donor can also vary from organization to organization. It could be $1,000 at some, and it could be $5,000, $10,000 at other organizations. So it can vary, but most importantly, these major donor pool prospects are coming from your direct mail donors. And direct mail donors are also the best source for donor advised fund gifts. And we'll go into that in more detail, but this is an area with huge growth and huge potential, especially for major donor upgrades. So it's very important to have a strong direct mail program because you want a consistent stream of prospects for major donors and eventually your legacy donors or your planned gifts, which is the ultimate goal for any fundraising program. Is really one of the most important measures of success for any development department. Okay, so we're going to do just some true or false questions here. We just want to know what you think if major gift donors and prospects should never receive direct mail. It annoys them and they will never respond. So we're just going to give you a few seconds to just make note of what you think the response should be. Okay, so 88% of you said false. Very good. It is false. And it's false because most major donors started out from the mail. They gave most likely a starting gift of $10, $25, because very few donors will immediately give that $1,000, $5,000. So it's very important to make sure that if donors prefer to give through the mail in the past, then to maintain that relationship through the mail. But also, mail is not just a form of solicitation. It can also be a communications vehicle, a cultivation vehicle, and it really just informs donors of the important work they're supporting and also giving them updates on what the organization is also doing. So it's really just keeping them engaged and informed and really kind of form that connection between the donor and the organization.
So Diana, we had a question about sharing the data for exactly what can you, because sharing data, every organization is so different that for a large donor can be very different. So can you specify a little bit more about the question?
Yeah, hi. I was just curious if there was sort of any aggregate data out there that talks about the fact that, you know, donors with significant capacity often start with smaller gifts.
Well,
often in working with clients, they're sort of like, we don't want to pay attention to, let's not screen the folks who have only given less than $250. I mean, I just had this conversation an hour ago. So I'm just curious if you have anything that I can say, see, it's not just me.
Yeah, I'm not surprised about that. We had this conversation all the time. So I think it really depends on the organization. You have organization, if I take an organization like Doctor Without Border, which always establish himself in a country by mail. Okay, so for them, they can even mail to 20,000, 40,000, and they receive huge gifts in the mail. If I take Human Rights Watch, which is a client, they are very large donor focused, so they came to the mail very late. And it's always, a struggle. Do we take the 500, 1,000 in the mail, or do we give them, to the different cities? So there's not a data we can share, like national data, but I think you need to test it, because a lot of organizations, unfortunately, they take people out of the mail, because let's say I gave you a gift of 100, but you well screen me and I have capacity to give you much more. So you're thinking, okay, I'm going to take you out of the mail stream and you're going to be contacted face to face. At the end of the day, it's possible that I don't want to be contacted face to face and I want to upgrade my gift by mail, or vice versa. So you do have to do a lot of testing.
Yeah, I agree. And a lot of times what I've seen is the gift amount that a donor gives is not always reflective of what their capacity is. So it's very important, like Corinne said, to test and just really evaluate the program individually.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep. Okay, so here we're just going to talk a little bit more about donor advised funds, only because, again, we're seeing exponential growth in this giving channel, especially since 2020. With COVID, there was a significant increase in giving through donor advised funds. And because a lot of large donors, even mid-level donors, are the type of donors who will be most likely to have a DAF account, it's really an area that we really need to start promoting across all clients, because after looking at year-end data, all of our clients saw an increase in donor advised fund giving. And the most important thing to remember is, because all the money in DAF accounts must be given to charities, this is why every nonprofit should start marketing donor advised funds. This year, we were just reading a study from Free Will. They're expecting 31 to 40 billion dollars to come from donor advised funds just this year alone. And we expect more growth in the coming years, especially since it's becoming more accessible. Some investment firms have lowered or even eliminated the minimum. It used to be $5,000 minimum at some places, but now they've eliminated it. So we're even seeing smaller gifts come from donor advised funds. And they also estimate 150 to $200 billion just sitting in donor advised funds ready to go to charities. So again, keep pushing this in front of donors, because donors may or may not be aware that they can give to certain organizations. So it's always good to just put it in front of them. And what we also find is most donor advised fund gifts are coming from the direct mail file. We've done matchbacks. We found for some of our clients, it could be 60% of DAF gifts, up to even 70 to 80% of all DAF gifts coming from the mail file. So that's why it's very important that you keep all donors in the mail, and also make sure that you promote donor advised funds in the mail. And here are just some ideas on ways to promote donor advised funds, but the most important thing is that they should be both promoted in the mail and also online on the giving page. There is a DAF direct widget that a lot of organizations have. And it really needs to be front and center, because it's a very streamlined way for donors to link directly to their DAF account and make a gift through their donor advised fund. And also don't forget to make sure there's the federal tax ID number, because they'll also need that. And so these are just some other ways that you can recommend to your clients to promote DAF. It could be just talking directly to donors and having DAF donors also provide testimonials. And here we put some inexpensive ways that you can promote DAF. So these are all just very simple inserts. Again, they don't cost a lot. We usually print them in bulk. So you can put them in a mailing and acknowledgements. And you can really see here that it's just a very straightforward way of telling donors how easy it is to support the organization through their DAF account.
Diana, can I just ask a quick question about this?
Mm-hmm.
Do you recommend like segmenting the list and only certain types of prospects would get an insert like this, or do you recommend that everyone, regardless of what they've done in the past or their capacity, should be given DAFs?
Yeah, I think everyone should get it,
Okay.
because you don't know who has a DAF account. Even if they've never given through a DAF, they might still have a DAF account, and they could just be waiting for that moment. If they feel that they've been thanked, they've been cultivated, they feel connected, then they might make a larger gift through their DAF account. So it certainly doesn't help. Hurt.
Yeah.
We just, for Notre Dame, so, it was their first mailing, and it was not to donors, it was an acquisition mailing to get new donor. We received a $400,000 DAF, and it was an acquisition. And, so it was not even donors. It's just that someone who must like a lot Notre Dame, because, but that was amazing, because it's paying basically for their next 5 acquisition mailing. You know what I mean? So we are even pushing it right now in acquisition mailing, meaning non-donor mailing. That's how big it is, that right now.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, next, true or false? The best prospects for planned gifts are high net worth donors, since they have the most capacity. Okay, so I just give everyone a few seconds. Wow, 100%.
Impressive.
Very impressive. So you guys are very well aware that planned giving should not just be reserved for people with wealth and high net worth individuals. Planned gifts can come from anyone. And again, we always find that large planned gifts could be 5, 6, 7 figure gifts are coming from direct mail sourced donors, because they've stayed longer on the file, they've been giving more frequently, and these are really indicators if a donor has a strong propensity to make a planned gift. So these are definitely factors to consider if your client asks you, who are my best planned gift prospects? And because direct mail donors also skew a little bit older, they're at a point in their lives when they are also thinking about estate planning. So again, it's really the planned gift is really that end goal for all fundraising program, and direct mail donors are your best source. So here, this is just a quick reference, just again to give you an idea of the potential for planned giving. And really, it's the baby boomers who are going to be driving most of the planned gifts in the next 50 years. They are sitting on, in total, $97 trillion. It's just a significant pool of revenue that can potentially go to nonprofits. And certainly not all of this will go to nonprofits, but you can imagine even a small percentage of 97 trillion can be a huge amount.
And planned gift come from the mail file. So if you take a big organization like Doctors Without Borders again, and they have 1 million donors, in the mail, their planned giving per year is about 100 million. So even if tomorrow they were going to disappear, they will have planned giving for bequests for a very long time. And when you take an organization like Human Rights Watch, which was well established, but came to the mail very late in 1999 or something like that. So they have only 60,000 donors. Their planned giving per year is 5 million, much better than before. Their DAF is 3 million, but it's because our file is small and because bequests come from mail donor. I mean, it can come from board, but mostly it's mail. This is why, like 8 years ago, everybody wanted to cut mail and do more digital and social media and everything. And right now, people are coming back to mail just because if you cut mail, you're going to cut bequest. So IRC, for example, when they had a little picture with a Syrian boy on the beach, they raised $10 million in a day. It was digital. So they were like, why are we going to do mail? So they cut the mail after the Syrian crisis. And now they are putting back a ton of money in the mail because it did cut their bequest. So this is why mail is important.
Yes. And
I just have a question about this. Just trying to think about like what the focuses are for our clients' direct mail programs, because there's so many different things where mail plays a big role. So you're talking about planned giving, you're also talking about DAFs. Like, how do you balance all of these different priorities and different messages and not dilute them?
Well, planned giving, it's easy because you can do just a postcard for planned giving once a year, because what you want to make sure for planned giving is you mail to your lapsed donor. Because when you look at people who are going to give you bequests, it's people who have been in your file for 10, 12 years, right? And maybe I put Human Rights Watch in my will, and because I did, then when they sent me solicitation, I don't want to give them money, so I'm going to be a lapsed donor. And then you said, oh, I'm not important because I'm a lapsed donor. So you have to be, planned giving, it's easy. If you have a newsletter, you can always put one page about planned gift. You can promote it on the web, you can do a postcard. So planned giving is not difficult. DAF, it's also kind of easy right now because you can put it on the web, and then at least 3 or 4 times a year, make sure in the thank you, you should definitely speak about planned giving and DAF, other way to give. And then in 2 or 3 mailing, particularly for the end of the year, you need to push DAF for the end of the year. Like, November, December, you have to push DAF.
Got it. Thank you.
Sure. So this is a sample of a postcard promoting planned giving, and if you're looking for ways to promote planned giving, April is a great time because that's when people are just doing their taxes. They met with their financial advisors, their accountants, so they're thinking ahead about what they can do for tax savings, tax benefits, and they could be thinking about making a planned gift. So a postcard is a great way. And the beauty of a postcard is it doesn't require someone to open the envelope. So you don't need a strong teaser or compelling imagery as much, but you do still need a nice message and really some information that donors can think about as they're considering their estate planning. Definitely provide a contact person, just so in case they need to reach out to someone. And then again, federal tax ID number, very important. And a lot of times people won't tell you that they included an organization in their will. So that's why it's also always good to make sure that you're really just messaging this across the board. Okay, so we're gonna go into donor profile, but before we do, we just wanna see if there are any other comments or questions before we move on.
I do have a quick question, and Corinne, you touched on this a little bit. But I was wondering, how does direct mail interact with the increase of online giving?
So mail now needs to be integrated totally with online. So if you mail, I don't know, women's right mailing, then you should have an email, after. Sometimes it's before, depends on the organization, but you always need to have an integrated email with it. And then if you have clients who have money, you need to have the Facebook also ads and the social media. So mail now is not just in a vacuum. So people like me who are very old and 60, okay, I still have checks, not, so I can write a check, but sometimes I will go on the website and, give online. So it's very interesting when you do match back for clients, they think that their online giving is from millennial or younger people. Well, still a big part of that is just, the baby boomer who are sometimes giving in the mail, but sometimes, give, online. And Facebook is the best platform, social media, to make money. And why is because older people are on Facebook. So when we have clients who wants to test TikTok and all of that, it's great, but that's not going to bring them money because it's a younger crowd. It's good for advocacy, but not for fundraising.
So,
Yeah.
oh, so 64 is the average age of a donor in the US. So it does, once again, it does skew a little bit older. But again, this is really useful information to have because like we keep saying, direct mail is really important for large donor and planned gifts. And so age, again, is an indicator of whether they might be finalizing their will or working on their will. QCDs, or qualified charitable distribution, another channel that's also seeing growth as donors are getting closer to 70 and a half years old or 71. They'll also be thinking about their retirement, their nest egg, and also tax savings, because when they do take money out of their IRA accounts, they do need to pay taxes on that. So some of the ways that they can benefit from tax savings is giving some of their IRA funds to a charity. And usually donors who are 64, they're no longer in as much debt. Children are probably grown, independent, so they're not paying for college or anything else. And a lot of times their mortgage is probably all set. So that's why knowing the age of a donor is very important, just to know where they are in their lives and just what their capacity could be. So a very good way of letting you know how to steward that relationship and build on it. Okay, and then Corinne touched on this a little bit, and it's we always get this question. It's the age-old question of how do we get to younger donors, and it's not to say that younger donors do not give. We do know that they give, but they might be more reactionary. They might be given to more emergency type organizations. And it's really great to build that relationship, keep them on the email list, cultivate them, ask them to volunteer. Those are really great ways to connect with them. But in terms of fundraising and giving, it's really the older donors who will have to pay off. And what we're finding is the response rates from younger donors isn't as high, and just the revenue per donor at a younger age group isn't as high either. So we did do an age depend on a client, and it was interesting just to see responses and also the revenue. And so you see here, it's really that older age group that's bringing in the majority of the revenue. And also a lot of the highest responses are also coming from the older age group. We did see a slight uptake, but that was very much due to just certain events and very specific campaigns. But it's really
that's a client who is an advocacy client. So it's a client that should do better with younger people. You know, it's not the Cousteau Society or, you know, something like that, which mostly for older donors. So you can see that, you know, it's still the older population who is doing well. It's not that it's not important not to try to get the younger one, but at the end of the day, if it's a chicken and the egg and the most revenue you want, then you need to go to older one.
Yeah. And then this is a sample acquisition mail file. And again, we see the most responses are coming from the older donors. So that's why a lot of direct mail packages are more simple and not contemporary, modern, or glossy. It's really because it's targeting the older donors. And then also contrary to what many people might believe, digital revenue is also coming, most of it is coming from older donors. And again, it's not so much that younger donors don't give, but it's really just the older donors are right now, they have the disposable income to give, and they'll give across multiple channels, not just through the mail. Okay, so we're going into the next section. So we're going to talk about key metrics and really just how to measure the success of a direct mail campaign and a program. Okay, so here we have just a sample result from a donor appeal. This went out in January. So we circle just kind of the key indicators of success. We know a lot of people will look at, of course, gross income, the cost, and then the response. But there's also another metric that we really use to measure the success of a direct mail appeal. And that's the cost to raise $1. And this one is important because what you really want to know is how much did the organization spend to raise that $1? Because even if it has a nice gross and a nice response, if that cost is too high, then that means your cost to raise $1 is too high. So what we use as a benchmark is 25 cents for cost to raise $1. So that means if an organization spends 25 cents to raise $1, then that's really, really good. For this client, it was 15 cents. So that was 10 cents below benchmark. So it's an A++++. So very successful campaign. If this were 90 cents, then there's probably a lot of room for improvement. Okay, and then for new donor acquisition. And so for acquisition, what we're referring to is acquisition using cold lists, and that's through list rentals, list exchanges with other nonprofits. So that's the type of new donor acquisition campaign that we're looking at here. So again, a lot of people will look at the number of gifts, what the average gift might be, and the response rate. But there's also another key metric that we look at to make sure that this is on target, whether it's for success or there's room for improvement. And for acquisition, it's the cost per new donor. So what you're looking at is how much did an organization spend to generate that new donor? And this one is calculated by net divided by number of gifts. So the benchmark for a cost per new donor is $150. So in general, if an organization spends $150 to acquire a new donor, then that's on target. For this client, it was only $60. So this was a very respectable cost per new donor. What this also means is at an average gift of $20, they'll recuperate their investment in about 3 years. which is also normal. I know it might seem like a long time, but that's a good time frame for when an organization can recuperate the investment in acquisition. And acquisition will always 98% of the time it will be a net loss, and it's really goes back to that investment in acquisition, because it's really to bring in those large donor and plan giving prospects.
But it's changing a little bit. So acquisition is an investment. So this is why board always hesitate, because you're going to lose money for 2 or 3 years. But because of that, right now, we did a lot of acquisition last year for new clients like Notre Dame, but MSI. So MSI is the opposite of Notre Dame. It's abortion in Africa. And basically we receive huge gift, basically paying for the program. So normally it's an investment, but because of the transfer of wealth and because the DAF, you can be lucky. And we are receiving more bigger donation now than we did, 10 years ago. So, so your investment, when we say 2 or 3 years to recoup, that if you don't receive a big gift, yeah, the normal way.
And that's why it's always important to promote DAF, even in acquisition.
Yeah.
I have a quick question just about acquisitions versus appeals. Where do lapsed donors fall in? Do they normally get lumped into acquisitions? How do you kind of account for that?
That's a very, very good question. So normally you mail your donor 0-24 months. Sometimes you can go to 36 months if you take the 50 and plus. So you have to, and then all the other labs, they go to your acquisition, okay? Because it's really less expensive. So if you are working for a nonprofit, which does not have an acquisition program, it's going to be very difficult for you to reinstall lapsed donor at a low cost, because you're not going to have a 50,000 print quantity for an acquisition. So this is a very good question. Normally the labs, they go with the acquisition, and for some clients who do not have acquisition, then you need to spend more money to reinstall lapsed donor.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Sure. So we know the investment can certainly deter the board or senior level management from investing in acquisition. But you really need to look at acquisition in the long term, because it could take 3 years to recuperate the investment. For this client, you see 3 years was the break-even point. But once you pass that break-even point, you really see that gradual upgrade at 10 years out. And once you secure that donor, you retain them, they upgrade their giving, and hopefully they'll also leave a bequest for the organization. That's where that payoff is. So it's really looking at that long-term reward for acquisition and less at the immediate return. Okay, and then so we just included some sample acquisition packages. This is a non-premium, meaning there's no gift or anything. This is really mission-based. It's all about the organization's message and the work. Insert.
So we put this package because it's very boring. As you can see, it's really not pretty, but they make money on
yes, this is the 2%.
So I cannot take the credit. When we took this client, they were making money with this package, which I could not believe. But they are. So sometimes, we have younger people who now are in charge of development, and they want, marketing, and they want bold, and they want color. You have to test it, because you have to, like for the glaucoma, we are testing different packages, but so far we did not beat yet this one, which I really do not like, because it's all green and whatever. But for their even for a new donor, it does resonate for them. This is the old way of doing mail, and sometimes the old way of doing mail is still the right way. I mean, that's the way it is. So And then after that, Diana, you can go to a more beautiful package with Mission Premium cards.
Yeah.
I have another question. I'm sorry, just related to the letter. I've noticed that direct mail letters it's a very distinct kind of writing. Like it's like 1 or 2 sentences per line. It's very repetitive. Like it kind of just goes against the grain of what we normally tell our clients about how to write and communicate, which is like concise, to the point.
Yeah.
Like why is that? And is that the right approach?
Because so number one, the donor is old, right? So you want to make sure when you write also that your typeface is big, because just doing a test on the size, sometimes the results are much better. And repetition is because when we do focus group, they really scan, they don't really read the letter. They read the first paragraph, sometimes something in the middle, and then you want to make sure you have a PS because they are going to go there. Yeah. So you want to make sure that you repeat, because they are not going to read it from A to Z. They're going to read, A and B, and then so you want to make sure that, I know it seems weird, but that you do repeat your message.
Okay, thanks. That makes sense.
And the writing needs to be very informal, like you're talking to a friend. There's a lot of white space. Again, the older donor, so kind of the visual is just as important as the message.
Okay.
Yep. So this is a note card package, more colorful, a little bit more premium. So we just wanted to give you a different mix of packages, and these are labels. I'm sure you've seen personalized notepads. So there are also a lot of different types of creative that you can use. But one important thing we do want to mention is, some people hate premium, some people love them, but it is important to find the right premium package for an organization. For instance, for this client, 2018, they were mailing premiums, and then they made a strategic decision that they wanted to cut it out. They didn't want to use premiums anymore. And in 2019, we already saw the aftermath of it. The donors decreased, revenue decreased, gifts decreased. And when they saw this, they immediately reinstated the premium package again. And in 2020, we're seeing positive trends again, increase in donors, revenue, and gifts. So it's very important that if a package is working, it's really good to keep it, or you test against it. Once you just take it out, it's very sometimes difficult to recuperate. It's success.
The beauty of mail is, and we're going to have to speed up a little bit, Diana, but the beauty of mail is we have data. So, in this client was someone from the board, did not like the premium. So the VP of development wanted to please the board. And she said, that's it, we're going to cut all premium. And we are like, okay, that's going to really impact the program. And, but she doesn't care because she wanted to please this board member. So at the end of the day, a year after, she lost her job because revenue were really going down, and we had to re-put premium. So the good thing with mail, and even more digital, you have data, so you can really see. And sometimes premium do not work for an organization, and I'm not saying to send a calculator and a 3 t-shirt, but mission premium like cards, calendar, label, it still works in the States. It still works very well, in fact, in the mail.
Okay, so the next section is donor retention. What I'll do is just being mindful of everyone's time. I'll probably go through this a little bit quickly. We're gonna do some multiple choice questions, but I think we can run through this, and there is multi-channel slides that do want to show everyone. So donor retention is the key success for any program. You bring in a donor, you want them to stay, and that's really why it's important. So when we want to look at retention, what you want to do is measure it against benchmark. And you want to look at first year retention, because new donors, you brought them in, you spent $150, you want them to stay. So when you're working with the client and they want to look at first year retention, 29% is the benchmark. So if you're doing an analysis and they're at 29%, great. If they're below that, then you might want to just take a close look at the program. Maybe it's the stewardship, communications, direct mail program, definitely something to.
And often you're going to have a board member who's telling you, well, your CFO, saying, well, why do I need to invest in the mail if I only retain 29% of them? Well, just know that digital is 25%. So for new donor, again, for new donor. So, you know, and a mail donor will bring you some DAF and some bequests, when a digital donor will not bring you that. They will bring you monthly gift. So you have to, you know, again, it's a chicken and the eggs. You need both. You need younger donors through digital, but people have this impression that they got a new digital and they 80% are going to renew. They are not renewing either. So you have to be careful.
Yeah. And then for your multi-year donors, and these are donors who have renewed at least once. So they've been on the file at least for 2 years. So they'll have a different retention rate just because they've made that renewal gift. And so for their benchmark, it's 59%. So it's much higher than a new donor. So again, when you're looking at donor retention, multi-year donor retention, you want to measure it against this benchmark. And then for overall retention, and this is all inclusive, new donors, multi-year donors, that benchmark is 35%. So it's generally in between the new donor and the multi-year donors. So that's a good way to measure, to make sure that the program is in the right direction.
But that's true if you have a good direct mail program, meaning you do a lot of acquisition. Because if you know you have only one acquisition a year, then your retention is going to be really much higher than that because you do not invest enough to bring new donor on board. So I'm putting a grain of salt there because
no, that's very important to keep in mind. And here's a chart just to give you a visual of what a solid donor retention program would look like. So the highest should always be your multi-year donors. In the middle is your overall retention, and that's all inclusive, new donor, multi-year donors. And then below should be the new donors. So if you're doing an analysis and your chart looks similar to this, then it's most likely moving in the right direction. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about mail and digital integration because direct mail, as we've already touched on, it doesn't work in silo, and it really shouldn't. It really does need to fit into the digital space. And the best way for that to happen is to make sure that there is a full integration between mail and digital. So here is an illustrative chart that shows revenue based on online-only donors, offline-only donors. And once you do an integrated email campaign for these donors, you see that increase in revenue. And once you add in multi-channel, and for multi-channel, that's social media, digital ads, if there's full integration, you really see that dramatic increase in revenue. And this goes the same for retention, because and this is really just for illustrative purposes. For online, it could be 36% mail, 43%. But once you add in that integration and donors are responding through different channels, they are more likely to retain. And then it's the same trend for multi-channel integration. If they see the same messaging, same branding across mail, email, social media, ads, you really see that nice increase in the retention rate. So they're engaged, they're connected, they're interested in what the organization is doing, and they feel like they're supporting a good cause, which is why there is that increase in donor retention. So here are samples of just some integrated campaigns. This is a Human Rights Watch member card mailing. So you see here's the member cards here. There was a matching gift incentive. And this was the email series, the integrated email series with the direct mail campaign. And you really do see that this is coming from the same organization. The branding is the same. Even the font, typeface are very similar, colors, imagery, the matching gift. So when a donor sees this, they really get the feeling that it's the same organization sending them the same message. And it really sticks more in their heads. As we know, donors are more likely to give to organizations they recognize. So that's why you really want that strong integration. And here, this is a different type of integration. This is from informed delivery. It's a service provided by the United States Postal Service. What happens here is for nonprofits, they can set up an account and the post office will email anyone who is subscribed to informed delivery. They'll get a notification in their email, in their inbox, letting them know what mail is coming that same day. So it's actually a great feature if you're ever curious. You can just sign on. But they also offer this service. So when a nonprofit sends out a mailing, they can also include a sample of the mailing plus a link to their donation page. So this is really just facilitating the way that donor can give. So even before they get the mail, they can just click through their emails and make a gift.
And you can have a lot of fun with the integration. We can ask, we do that. We ask the donor, by email, which, like for the membership card for Human Rights Watch, we give them a choice of 2 or 3 pictures and say, which one do you prefer? And, and then they did it through online. And then when they receive it, then, well, if they voted for this one, they are very happy. And, so we do the same for calendar, we do quiz, so there is a lot of integration you can do between mail and online, and not only for solicitation, for cultivation. We did one, it was about naming giving circle, for mid-level for Notre Dame, and we ask people, do you prefer this name or do you prefer that? And they love to interact. And then once they interact more online, then you know that they are going to give you more money at the end. So it's easy to integrate. So you need to integrate mail, online, social media. You need to integrate mail and plan giving. You need to integrate mail and all these estate gift like DAF, IRA, CQC. So that's what is integration. And if you work for, sometimes we work for very big nonprofit, and you had the marketing department, the development, communication, and plan giving. That's difficult because you really need to integrate to make more money.
Okay, so key takeaways. Direct mail is important because it's the feeder program for basic gift and planned gifts. As we saw, there is that big reward, and acquisition is the best way to bring in those direct mail donors. It's very important to look at acquisition as a long-term investment and not just in the immediate returns. It's direct mail is data driven. It's great. You can look at data, do testing, and really look at numbers to evaluate the success of a direct mail program. And there's a lot of different types of benchmarks that you can use just if you want to know how you measure against other organizations. Retention is key. You always want to look at retention year after year because you want to make sure that it's at least growing. Or if it's going down, then it's a great time to take action, do an analysis, look at what might be driving it, and make changes to the program because there is always room for improvement. And then also, as we just talked about, a strong integrated program. Direct mail doesn't work by itself. It really needs to work across the board. with all digital channels. So, and it's just acquisition, donor appeals, planned giving, donor advised funds, qualified charitable distributions. All of those different channels, giving channels, should be communicated to all donors in all forms of communications. Because we know donors are shifting their behavior. Some might give in the mail today, some might give online tomorrow. So it's just important to make sure that they get that message when they are ready to make that gift. Okay, and that's it. So I know we have 2 minutes left. If there are any last minute questions or comments.
This was great. Thank you so much. We really appreciate this. I think, you know, as I mentioned at the top, if anyone would like to reach out to Corinne or Diana, I can help facilitate that. We did record the session, so it'll be available. Have a great week, everyone. Corinne and Diana, thank you so much again.
No problem. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.